Let's now go across to the Secretary of Road Transport and Highways, Mr. Giridhar Aramane, who is overseeing this comprehensive review of India's electric vehicle ecosystem. Mr. Aramane, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a busy few weeks for you, Mr. Aramane. You have been holding several review meetings with government officials, also EV makers. Give us a sense, even as that high-level probe report is underway, have you got any kind of preliminary analysis on what may have led to these fires?
Good evening. Actually, you summed it up very well. There are several reasons for the battery catching fire and electric vehicles exploding. The major defects can be in the cell itself. If cell is defective, once it catches fire, if the battery management system is not proper, or the battery design is not proper, it can spread to the entire battery and cause the explosion or fire. So it starts from the functional design itself, how these are arranged, how the cells are manufactured, and how the battery management system works, how the sensors are arranged, and the reliability of the battery management systems. Our initial investigation reveals that there can be very large improvement in all these factors, especially the functional safety aspects of the cells and batteries, and their arrangement in the electric vehicles has to be done in a very professional and in a very safe fashion by the manufacturers.
So you're saying, sir, we need functional improvements, major functional improvements in the safety mechanisms, in the thermal management systems, and the way these cells are checked as well, Mr. Aramane?
Yeah, the design of the cell, the manufacturing of the cell, and the testing of the cell before putting them in the battery, and how they are arranged in the battery, and what is the venting mechanism. If suppose a fire happens in one cell, how that should be isolated. All these things have to be thought of before actually manufacturing a battery. So these aspects need very thoughtful, careful, and systematic management in all these manufacturing companies. There can be a few shortfalls, which we are working with the manufacturers to set right quickly, to prevent any further damage to the customers, any loss of life or the property.
Right. Have you also in some cases found these EV makers to have been negligent when it came to testing these cells, how they have been, how the battery pack was designed to pack in 200, 240 cells together? What were the safety mechanisms? Have you found them to be negligent or short in any of their efforts?
I would not like to make impromptu comments on this aspect. We have undertaken a very thorough review, and some part of the report is already with us. We are expecting other parts of the report to come to us in next few days. Then we will talk to the manufacturers. We'll share the findings with the manufacturers and ensure that all the defects pointed out, all the loopholes which have come to light are set right quickly. In addition to that, we have strengthened the committee which is looking into these aspects by appointing two more people. One expert from IIT Madras has been co-opted, and one more scientist from the Department of Science and Technology Center at Hyderabad, ARCI, has also been asked to join the team, so that the SOP for functional safety is prepared and implemented by all the manufacturers. I am already consulting several battery manufacturers who have established systems for functional safety, quality control, quality assurance, and also working with the regulators abroad. These consultations will result in better standards. We are already working on All India Automobile Industry Standard 156, which will further undergo improvement in next few weeks.
Okay, so you're saying that automotive safety standards will undergo major improvements in the next 2 weeks. Mr. Aramane, if I could also ask you, the MoRTH has sought information from EV players, not just the ones which have been connected to recent EV buyers, but several of them in the ecosystem. What kind of information are you seeking from EV companies?
We are basically asking them to share us how they are able to ensure functional safety, how during the manufacturing and during operation, how these batteries are compliant with the accepted global standards of safety for the consumer and general public. So once we receive the SOPs they are implementing on the quality control, quality assurance, then we will be able to compare them with best of the standards and prescribe guidelines in such a way that while ensuring the safety of the consumer and the value for money of the consumer, they will not prevent any innovation. We have no business to prevent innovation by straitjacketing the procedures which the companies have to adopt. We can only give the minimum guidelines so that the purpose of the government to ensuring of the protection of the consumer is achieved without disturbing the company's IPR, company's innovative capability, and efficiency and productivity which each company can bring into the system by adopting their own procedures.
Right. Mr. Aramane, when it comes to R&D and the focus on the thermal management system, how strong are the R&D teams of these companies? Do you feel that the focus on getting the thermal management system, getting the safety aspects absolutely right, maybe that is lacking in the ecosystem among some of the EV players?
We have all types of players in the system right now. There are more than 40 people involved in the entire battery electric vehicle systems and the two-wheeler category. So we have a spectrum. At one end are very big players like Ola, Ether, etc. And at the other end are the companies which have just started a few years ago, who are operating on a very small scale. So the strength of the R&D team will be depending on what they have chosen to do. If they are simply purchased of IPR of the battery design, and they are also purchasing batteries from outside, they may not need much R&D team. But when it comes to the operational portion, safety during manufacturing and later, we need a strong team in all the manufacturers. Manufacturers' main job is to ensure that they design a safe and efficient product. If they do not have enough strength, then they should introspect. And before government takes any action, they should come up with a better organizational design to give value for money for the consumer.
Right. So you have asked companies to take corrective action. Could you tell us how many companies would be lacking manpower? I can understand it's difficult for you to name companies, but in your review of these 40 electric vehicle makers in the country, how many of them have been found wanting or short when it comes to R&D teams or low manpower?
We are collecting information. We ask for all the organizational setup related data. Once that comes, we'll analyze and we have to correlate it with the type of work they are doing. So that task will take a few more days. Once that is with us, we'll be able to discuss, consult the manufacturers and convince them to improve upon their past expertise and experience.
Right. And you said that if that is not done in the coming months, then action may be taken against these companies?
Ultimately, the proof of the pudding lies in its eating. So if the product is not good, they will have to pay dearly, both in the market. Regulators. Regulators are not only in Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. It concerns the standards, battery standards. It concerns the consumer protection. It concerns the loss of life and property So they are liable to common courts of law also. So the regulation will not be on how many people they should employ or what are the procedures they should adopt. It will be on the quality of the product they are planning to sell in the market and the benefit or the loss consumers are incurring through this product. So it will be basically strictly as per law, the existing law of the road transport and highways, of the consumer affairs, and the common law like Indian Penal Code, etc. More than that, micromanaging the companies is not on our agenda. We don't want to do that, and we don't have any agenda to do that also.
Right, you're saying micromanaging companies is not on the government's agenda. You would only want them to adhere to safety aspects for the interest of the consumer. Mr. Aramane, do you feel that the focus on speed to market, many of the EV companies, we hear of electric vehicles, announcements, companies coming up almost every second, third day. Do you feel that the focus on speed to market somehow needs to be tempered down and we must ensure there is no compromise on safety and quality?
The second part of what you said, Parikshit, I fully agree that the quality shall be the focus. But the first part, I would not like to comment on that, because if you got a very good team, very efficient and productive team, who are competent and capable of bringing out the product to the market quickly, they are welcome. But they have to do, keeping in view the quality standards which they have to maintain. Ultimately, automobile is a thing which can cause death or which can improve lives. So they should ensure the safety without compromising on any other things.
Let me also ask you, are there gaps in our testing standards when it comes to ARAI and ICAT? Do these testing agencies need to be strengthened, or do our testing norms need further strengthening?
They have the capability, because as you see, four-wheelers require further more intensive kind of a testing. They have been doing that in a fine fashion. I don't have any problem or suspicion on the testing agencies. They are managed by professionals, and they will continue to do a good job even for two-wheelers. As I rightly pointed out in the beginning, the testing standards have to be strengthened, and manufacturing processes also have to be looked at in a very close fashion. Then only we will be able to tell which particular aspect the companies need to act. I have full confidence on our testing agencies. There is no problem with them. Whatever we can prescribe, they will be able to test.
Right. So the government has denied reports of asking companies to stop new launches. Could you give us a sense of what has been the exact communication with some of these companies related to EV fires? Were they asked to stop production or asked to stop launches till the time they take corrective action? Could you explain the communication with these companies?
If you see the incidents, one or two companies have not yet started selling in the market. They are in the initial phase of launching their vehicles. And those vehicles which were being shifted to the dealer points caught fire. So the general advice was that if you find the vehicles you are planning to launch are defective, have caught fire, then you may reconsider launching them. That's the advice which was the simple point which was made to the companies is that if a particular batch of vehicles, if a particular design of vehicles has proved to be defective, you please evaluate them quickly and reconsider their launch if you think that they will again cause you problem by catching fire and causing damage to the consumers. I don't think there is any problem with that. Companies are also in line with what we have said. As you have seen, almost all the companies which are in the news for wrong reasons have either recalled or have postponed the sale of their brands of vehicles. So the advice was given in a very mild and gentle fashion, and it was also well received. I have not heard any complaint on the advice given by the ministry.
So, sir, this advice to not launch vehicles if there is any sort of defect, is this only for one company or is this for all the companies which were related to recent fires?
It was a general advice saying that if you find that, you please test the batteries and your design first. If you find any defects in that design, going by the experience of 5-6 fires which are seen in the market, in the news, and then if you find that your vehicle may also get into such problems, please don't do any further sale or launch of those batches or of those designs. This much was told, and companies are okay. If their battery is faulty, if their design is defective, then by selling them, they only will get into problem.
Right. Fair point, sir. Have any companies informed you about voluntarily stopping production?
I don't want to take names. The companies themselves have come forward and said that they have recalled. And those companies which are yet to launch their vehicles, their brands, are obviously in the job of rectifying the defects before starting the sale of the vehicles made by their company.
Right. So there is a perception that a large number of players are simply getting imported parts from China and not doing minimum localization that may be needed. Do you feel that battery components coming from China may not have been tested and checked thoroughly? Is this also an aspect that you're looking into, supply chains of EV companies?
I'm not looking at any particular geography for checking or quality control aspects. I'm telling them that the supply chain must be identified. If a particular vehicle has caught fire, where did they procure the cells? Where was the battery manufactured? And who has conducted the tests on that? What is the procedure adopted by them? Entire chain of activities in the manufacture, assembly of that particular vehicle shall be traceable, so that I can go back there and check whether the defect was in the manufacturing process, testing process, or assembling process, etc. So this is essential part of functional safety, the traceability of each and every component to the last item. So that much we are asking them to do. We are not identifying any particular country or any particular reason for doing such checks. Every particle, every component of the battery as well as the vehicle must have the traceability. That is our mandate.
All right. Every vehicle must have traceability when it comes to the battery, where the cells are brought from, where the battery pack is assembled. Important point being made by you there, sir. Mr. Aramane, I'd also like to ask you, in some cases, companies have blamed a short circuit due to negligence in charging of the scooter by the customer. And in one case, most recently, a company has said that the fire took place in the scooter because it had not been serviced despite several reminders. Do you feel customers need to be sensitized more, or do you think companies need to put in more safety checks?
If you are selling large number of vehicles, you will have customers who are careless. You will have customers who are illiterate, who cannot read the manuals and who cannot be guided. And many times vehicles can be driven not by the owner, but somebody else, his son, his daughter. So it is the duty of the company to ensure that even in extreme use of abuse, extreme case of abuse, the vehicle does not catch fire and damage the lives and properties. So it is essentially the job of the company to ensure that even if a single cell, explodes or catches fire, it must be cut off from the entire circuit, and it is isolated. It is allowed to vent all its gases and heat, and the battery is safe, vehicle is safe. So that is the type of design we are looking at. We are not looking at companies blaming the customers. Even if there is an abuse by the customer in terms of excessive charging, excessive heating, or any mechanical damage, vibration damage, or even if electric scooter is climbed over by 10-ton truck, the battery should not explode. That is the quality of batteries they are required to bring out. If they bring out batteries which will explode by half an hour of overcharging, then there is a need for introspection.
Right. Important point there that customers may be careless, but at the same time, very important for the company to make sure that the battery remains safe and there is a mechanism to deal with any sort of short circuits as well. Would you be looking at seriously reviewing India's testing norms? Could there be a new set of guidelines, sir, for quality checks at the manufacturer's end? Testing standards at the level of ARA and ICAT that could be announced in the next 1 or 2 weeks?
We are revising the Automobile Industry Standard 156 to bring in the latest tests. The testing regime will be evolving. It's a very dynamic field. Electric vehicle sector is evolving very fast and requires constant updation from regulation stage also. So I don't say our standards are inadequate. I would say that they require quick updation to match the standards which are being followed in advanced countries. Like Tesla does some of the best possible testing. Similarly, in South Korea or Japan or Germany, they have very high standards of testing. We must quickly adopt them and ensure that our vehicles are safe.
Right. And you made that point about Tesla. Are you looking at some of the global companies and how global regulators are making laws for the EV ecosystem? And if I may also add, any word on Tesla coming to India, sir? Any further headway in talks with the Indian government?
We want to follow the global standards. Whatever is the best in the world, those kind of standards will have to come to India. So the standards will ensure that the safety aspects are quickly aligned with the global standards. Tesla is welcome, as my minister has pointed out, and Government of India have pointed out. They are welcome to come here and establish their manufacturing facilities. We have already facilitated the sale of the first batch of vehicles after homologation, and they can test the market with those limited number of vehicles permitted. Anytime they're welcome here for manufacturing in our country.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Giridhar Aramane, for giving us your overview of India's EV ecosystem, what needs changing, and your advice to electric vehicle makers. The important point there that you're making is that the government does not want to micromanage, but there can be absolutely no compromise when it comes to customer safety. Thank you very much, Mr. Giridhar Aramane, for joining us here on CNBC TV 18.